Hey guys, what's up? This is the first time you're watching one of these. I'm Kurt Hughes. I own Ignite Baseball LLC. I'm just on my way to a meeting here, so I thought I'd record a video and do something a little different than what I usually do. I'm just going to kind of go back and kind of just tell you my story about how I got here. So I think that the root of everything that I do, I was kind of joking around with my girlfriend about this the other night, but the root of every single thing that I do is really just based in my absolute hatred for losing. It's funny, I mean, as far back as I can remember, there's nothing that, pains me more or brings me more disdain than losing, really, in anything. So quick little funny story for you. This is kind of unrelated, but I'm going to bring it back, I promise. So when I was, I guess, like a senior in high school, a kid that I played travel ball with, one of my good friends, Sam Maycumber, he always had a ping pong table in his basement, and it was kind of a crappy ping pong table. But I always went and I always played with him, and he'd always beat me really, really bad. I always like to play and try to win, and I would always lose, and I was kind of frustrated with that. So I always wanted to get my own ping pong table. And Sam, his family was buying a new ping pong table, a nicer one. She's like, "Hey, do you want my old one?" Sure. So it was kind of rickety, just not a very nice table, and brought it over to my house, set it up, and I swear I played every single day from then until basically when I went to college. And it was I don't know, I want to say probably that was 6 months, and I thought I was pretty good at ping pong. And then I get to college, and first day there's a ping pong table in the lobby, or the common area, whatever you want to call it, and we're all hanging out playing, and it's my turn to play, and I'm all right, yeah, I'm pretty good, I'm gonna do well. And I get embarrassed, absolutely destroyed in ping pong, no shot of even coming close to win. I think I lost 21-5, and it was against someone who he'd lost a couple times that day. It's not like he was the best player there. So that really made me mad, and I went absolutely as hard as I could to become really, really good at ping pong. And that so the way that would work out is basically every single day I figured out who the best player, the best ping pong player in all the dorms was, and I befriended him, and I challenged him to play every night, and for 3 months straight he beat me 21-10. And then I finally started to figure out how to be able to return his spikes, and then I figured out how to spike myself, and then I got a lot better. And as college progressed, I was really, really good at ping pong. Now I haven't played in a while because I don't have a table anymore, but I got very good at ping pong. And the whole reason I got really good at ping pong is because I was furious that I got embarrassed like that, and I had to redeem myself. And then it's funny how that kind of, instead of bring it back, it's funny how that relates to baseball. My senior year of high school, I'm from Vermont originally, just a little teeny town, and the competition, it was no secret that the competition in Vermont at that time wasn't really that good. The fastest pitcher that we'd see the whole year was 85, and the average was way less than that. So I had a really good senior year and a good summer ball year and everything, and going into college, I thought I was pretty good, and I was okay for sure. So fall ball starts freshman year. I do pretty well, but don't really hit for power or anything. I just kind of hit a bunch of singles in fall ball. And then I ended up spraining my ankle playing basketball on a really rainy day with a couple of my friends. and I wanted to like prove to coach that I kind of had guts, and I wanted to ensure that I'd made the team. Like in Vermont, I probably was going to make the team anyway, based on like prior performance before that time, but I had in Vermont, because the school was so small, and really just because I basically got picked up for the travel team that I was playing on. Like I didn't really have to try out, because they're just like, oh yeah, like we've seen you play, we know you're good enough, like just play on our team. So it was my first experience ever trying out for anything, which I know this is a really like foreign concept to a lot of people, but like my college tryouts was the first thing I'd ever tried out for in my life. So I really didn't know what to do. I was really not like confused, but like I just didn't really understand the process. And looking back, I'd probably showed enough in the first 2 weekends, and I'd been able to like hit pretty fast pitching and respond well and everything, so I was probably good. But I felt like I needed like to make it like abundantly clear that like I belonged on the team. So I just taped my ankle up and played poorly, really poorly, because by no means was I in any condition where I really should have been playing. I could hardly walk, let alone play baseball. So, but I did that, and I struggled at the plate because of that, because it was my front foot, so I really couldn't rotate very well. And because of that, fall ball ends, and my coach is like, well, like, you're on the team as a, like kind of like a utility guy and pitcher, but we really need to work on your swing a lot, because you really like, your swing could be a lot better. And I'm 18 years old from Vermont, haven't really had any coaching that I thought was good coaching. Looking back, like I'm like, okay, like I had some people that like, my dad had always said some pretty smart things about hitting, which looking back, when I was in college, I wish that I would have listened to him more and not stress so much about like what my coaches were saying. But like, yeah, we really need to fix your swing. But at the time I had thought that like, these coaches had been to the College World Series before, Division III, but still the College World Series. So I was like, well, they got to know their stuff, clearly they can be people that like help me tremendously. So I listened to every word that they said, like as gospel, worked really hard in the off season to try to convert my swing into what it was they wanted. And I showed up, to spring ball, and I couldn't hit. Like, I was trying to do everything that they said. Once we started seeing, pitching that was solid, I had no prayer. Like, I'd never felt so lost, like, in my whole life at the plate. And, it was probably, it's really the experience now that drives me more than anything, is that, was that, kind of like fear of like going into the box, where like I'd been, up until college, I'd been so confident, like irrationally confident. Like if you watch the NBA, like Dion Waiters confident. Like, he was on the team with like Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, and he always thought he was like the best player. Like that's how confident that I was about hitting. Like you could never tell me that I was not the best hitter on the team. You could have put me on any team and I would have told you I was the best hitter on the team. But then I like showed up and couldn't hit like at all. And I had fear for my at bats. Like I was pretty sure that I was going to strike out or hit a dribbler, which was like something that I'd never experienced before. And a lot of it was just mechanical changes. There was nothing like, there was really nothing else that was going on other than like, I had been told that like I didn't want to open my hips too far. I, wanted to have like a quiet step, get my foot down really, really early. And what ended up happening was I was terrible, like absolutely atrocious. So that really motivated me to kind of do what I'm doing now. I ended up hitting, literally I only had like 4 at-bats on the whole year, and I didn't get a hit. It was 0 for 4. I think with like 2 strikeouts, which I usually never strike out, or very rarely would I strike out. And I was borderline like depressed about the whole situation, just because like baseball up until that moment was like my life. So I ended up transferring schools back to another Division III school near like my hometown, and I spent the whole summer, I was playing on a team, but I spent the whole summer just like changing my swing and doing basically the opposite of everything they told me. I didn't really have a method to my madness. I just knew that whatever I was doing, when I was at school, like, didn't work, and I needed to change it. So I did. I came back. I ended up having a pretty good year in college the next year, and then the year after that, I got surgery, so I had to sit out for the year, which was a bummer. But during that time, I was like, well, if I'm not going to be playing, I'm at least going to understand this hitting thing better, because I've kind of gone back and forth on, what it is I should do, and I still wasn't really sure. I just knew that the stuff that I was doing previously was a lot different than what I've been taught in college. So I was like, I probably should educate myself more about this, and we'll move forward. So I bought a couple books. The Mike Schmidt story, which was not very good. I bought Positional Hitting by Jamie Savalas, and that book changed my life. It wasn't super technical. I mean, I think there were some components of it that, he's probably pretty technical about the way that he teaches. But basically what this guy did was, if you haven't read it, you should check it out. Basically what this guy did is he just took, at the time when he was originally doing it, he just took like baseball cards and he like lined them all up. He was like, okay, well, what are all the positions like in the swing that all of these guys are getting into? And then once video started coming out, he became obsessed with slow motion video. He'd put everything in slow-mo, and he would just watch it and figure out like, okay, like most hitters, are here when they're stepping. Most hitters are here at this position, and they slot their back elbow, and they do all this stuff. And most of them try to have their bat in the way of the ball for a really long time, which was like kind of a foreign concept to me, because before I'd always been told just to be like short to the ball, which basically, if you don't know what that means, it means that like, wherever your hands are, you want to try to bring them straight to the ball, which will then result in, your ability to be quick, be able to respond to fast pitching. And that was really like the entire like crux of that argument. But Jamie Savalas, what he said was, you should have a great area of impact, which is not different than what Ted Williams had said in his book, The Science of Hitting, which I had read years before, which I'm not sure why I wasn't just listening to that at that time, but that's neither here nor there. So you would say, like, the longer that your bat can be in the way of the pitch, the greater your probability of actually running into that pitch. So from that point on, I kind of changed everything that I was doing and tried to build my swing model around that. So I was still kind of like in a space where I'd still use like some old stuff, like get your foot down early. I still like thought that worked. But I started like integrating stuff like, okay, like swing up, get your bat in the way of the ball, which are still some things that I kind of use today, in a different way, but I still use them. And, that book changed my life and really kind of put me on the path that I am now. And I actually never played college baseball again, just because I was a biology major in college, and I didn't really have time to play. I thought I was going to fail my classes if I didn't spend enough time like doing chemistry stuff or biology stuff. I thought I was going to fail. Like, organic chemistry is no joke. If you haven't taken it, don't. Unless you need to, obviously. But I thought that I wasn't a hitter that could hit the ball consistently like over the fence in batting practice. Even when I was at my best, I couldn't do that. I was always like a good average hitter. And I had this theory, and I still think this theory is right. Like, if you're an infielder, specifically like a middle infielder, I was like a shortstop, second baseman, third baseman, that kind of stuff. Thanks. If you're an infielder and you aren't like absurdly fast, you have to hit the ball. You have to hit the ball for power. And really that's the only way that you make it in pro ball. So if you're just like an average, like a plus average hitter, and you're not really, really fast, and you aren't like the best defensive player like out there, then you really need to hit for power, or you're just not going to make it. So I kind of put myself in a category. I was like, look, like, you're a good average hitter. Like, I'm pretty sure that like you put someone out there, like anyone pitching, I always felt like I could hit them, and I was usually proven right on that. I usually could hit them, regardless of who was throwing. But I did feel like I didn't have enough power to actually be able to, to ever really get a pro contract. So I decided, it was time to stop being Peter Pan and grow up and start putting my time, into having a real job. So I did that, and really focused really, really hard on, bio and chem. But on the side, I was still like trying to like help my friends on the baseball team, because I felt like I was in a position where I kind of understood some stuff about hitting that I thought a lot of people didn't. So I was like trying to help my buddies, and I ended up helping a couple of them. I think I played a decent role in one of my friends kind of turning their like their college baseball career around. And he he was on the verge of quitting. He almost stopped playing baseball, and I kind of talked him out of it, and asked him to kind of trust me, and give me like a month or two to like help him with his swing and see what happens. And it paid off. It was like he wasn't like the best player in the world, but he certainly improved a lot and came a long ways in that process. So at that point, I kind of felt like I had something as far as like what I was doing, but I still didn't think, being someone from Vermont, I didn't think that being a hitting coach was a real job. Let me qualify that so you kind of understand what I mean. So Vermont, and if you're, in Vermont and you're listening to this, you know this already. There isn't a whole lot of industry in Vermont. They're just, people, like my mom's a teacher, my dad owns a small business. If you don't do basically one of those two jobs, or there's a couple more, like you could be like an engineer, or like do construction or something like that. But jobs like that, and really the ski industry, are really the only thing that's in Vermont that really bring in a whole lot of money. That's not to say that teaching, or my dad does pretty well, but like that's not to say that those things bring in like a ton of money. But when you have an economy where there isn't like a huge market just for services, then it's really people like me don't really exist in Vermont. People are passionate about this stuff, but there's no really like path or avenue for them to actually make real money. Usually the people that are passionate about this kind of stuff in Vermont, they just end up being high school coaches, and they aren't able to really build a business around it, because there isn't enough people that have enough money to be able to pay for the services. So I didn't think it was a real job, didn't think I could do it. So I moved down to the DC area after undergrad, with some friends, and was just working in restaurants while I was trying to get like a transition job between undergrad and grad school. Worked at FDA for a while. That was cool. It gave me the amount of time to figure out that science really wasn't what I wanted to do. Not that I don't do science now, but I mean like real like chemistry, biology, like that kind of science. Like I realized that wasn't really my path. and I was coaching some travel teams on the side, and I had thought that originally in the travel team industry, it was just not really that big a thing in Vermont either. So my thoughts going into that whole process was that, I didn't realize that the privatization of baseball, like just the ability to have like a business doing this kind of stuff was so big. And I realized that there were a decent amount of hitting coaches in the area, and, people were doing this stuff. So I started kind of researching on like what they were teaching, and I evaluated like whether I thought that they were good or not. And then I also was just like talking to a lot of people like in the travel industry that I was working in, like, about hitting. And the realization that I came to is that, like, I thought that I was a victim of, I thought I was kind of like a minority as far as like what the coaches were teaching in college, right? I thought that my coaches just didn't really know what they're talking about. That's not all my coaches. Please don't, like, if you're watching this and you're one of my coaches, there's a couple of you that have been like really, I'm not going to use names, that's not important, but there's been a couple of you that have been really, really important, like in my growth and development, and really like encouraged me along the way. Especially guys like Todd Hayes, Bob Godlewski, my dad. I said I wasn't going to use names, but then I used them, but I'm talking positively, so it's all good. So huge respect for you guys. You've been really, really beneficial to me in the past. But anyways, so back to what I was saying. I thought that the coaches that had worked with me were just not good. And I thought that there was clearly a lot more really, really good coaches around. I just didn't find them. And what I realized was that most people that do this for like a living didn't really understand the way hitting was supposed to work. They were still teaching very like outdated stuff, like, don't rotate your hips, like swing down at the ball. They were teaching things like, trying to like eliminate movement in order to, create or like, control more stuff. And from my perspective, that just wasn't working at all. And I felt like I was bringing something to the table. So then I decided to kind of start this business and go all in on it. So I ended up, quitting FDA and doing this, which kind of led me here. So everything that I do now, my entire swing model is based, it's based on science. So it's not like, I just woke up one day and decided that one guy was saying something really smart and that I would, do what he told me to do. I did have some guidance in the beginning from Baseball Rebellion. They're awesome down there. But really, one of the things that Chaz, he's the owner of Baseball Rebellion, great guy. One of the things that he really, really did was he was kind of just like a guide, but he didn't really like hold my hand and lead me there. He like just let me watch him teach a couple lessons. Let me watch some of like his guys, like the other guys that work for him, teach a couple lessons. Shout out to JK, Gabe, Casey. Saw them teach some lessons, and really like that was about it. And then he was like, okay, go, like just go figure it out. So I've been figuring it out for the past 3 years, and just I'm constantly like experimenting, constantly changing, constantly trying to come up with the best way to do anything. And I'm never set in saying that one thing is the best. You always have to test it, and then once you establish that something is really good, you're always searching for something better. So I just spend all my time working with guys and trying to come up with the best ways, the best movement learning drills in order to develop the best swings and make my guys as successful as possible. Because really that's what it's all about. I hate losing so much that I don't want the guys that I work with, or really anyone, to have that same experience that I had, where you like have fear going to the plate and not like just not know what to do, and just know that like you're gonna get out, unless like something like, you know, for the luck of the draw happens. Like, I want my guys to be able to like go up, be confident about the swing pattern they have, and know that it can work and that it's going to work. Because really, like, when your swing is pretty good, the two most important things are stealth belief and athleticism. And if those things go out the window, then everything else is gone. But you have to build that solid movement foundation first before you can really become confident and become athletic. If you don't have that solid movement foundation that allows you to get your bat in the way of the ball quickly, keep it in the way of the ball for a long time, and really generate a lot of force for your body weight and for your own fast twitch ability, then then it's not going to work. So everything that I do really rotates around, how do I make a hitter get their bat in the way quick, keep it in the way for a long time, and use a ton of force. And if anything that doesn't accomplish those things, it can't ever be part of the model. So that's essentially what I do, how I got here. I hope you enjoy. I know this was a lot longer one than usual, but feel free to hit me up if you have any questions just about hitting, about my story. You want to say what's up, whatever. My contact information is down below. So talk to you guys soon.